The world stopped spinning the moment Elias's hand grazed mine under the dim glow of the street lamp. I wasn't supposed to feel this. A jolt that burned through every nerve. A betrayal of everything I'd promised my family. But there we were, two shadows in a Portland park, stealing a moment that could unravel us both. My name is Riley, and I'm the middle child of the Harper family, the one who never quite fit the mold. At 30, I've learned to wear my non-binary identity like armor, though it's dented from years of small-town whispers and my mother's pointed silences. I'd come back to Portland for my sister Clara's wedding, a grand affair meant to seal her future with Elias Martinez, the man my parents adored. Elias, 28, was everything they wanted. Charming, ambitious, with a smile that could disarm a room and a Cuban-American heritage that made him the pride of our diverse neighborhood. He was the perfect son-in-law, the one who'd carry on the family legacy. Except he wasn't looking at Clara the way he looked at me. It started innocently enough, or so I told myself. Clara had asked me to help Elias with the wedding preparations, picking out flowers, tasting cakes, the kind of tasks that felt safe, mundane. But every shared glance lingered a second too long. Every accidental touch felt like a secret we hadn't meant to keep. By the time we were alone in that park, the air thick with the scent of rain and fallen leaves, I knew we were teetering on the edge of something dangerous. "Why do you keep doing this to me?" Elias whispered that night, his voice low, almost pleading. His dark eyes searched mine, and I could see the weight of his own guilt, the promises he'd made to Clara, to my family. "I'm supposed to love her, Riley, not you." I wanted to laugh, to tell him he was wrong, that this was just a fleeting mistake. But my throat tightened, and all I could do was step closer, the space between us shrinking until it was nothing. "Then why does it feel like this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The wedding was 2 weeks away, and Portland buzzed with anticipation. Clara, 32, radiant and oblivious, floated through dress fittings and guest lists, her laughter filling our family's craftsman-style home in Laurelhurst. She was the golden child, the one who'd always done everything right. Law school, a steady career, and now a fiancé who seemed to step out of a dream. My parents, especially my mother, saw her marriage as a triumph, a way to cement our place in the community. I was just the sibling who'd moved to Seattle, chasing art and ambiguity, never quite measuring up. But Elias and I couldn't stay away from each other. It was reckless, stupid even, but every stolen moment, brushing hands while passing a coffee cup, meeting eyes across a crowded room, felt like a lifeline. We'd meet in secret at hole-in-the-wall diners or quiet corners of Powell's bookstore, talking about everything but the wedding. He told me about his childhood in Miami, the pressure to be the successful son after his parents' sacrifices. I shared my struggles with identity, the way I'd fought to carve out a space where I could be myself. We were two people who weren't supposed to fit, yet somehow we did. One night, as we sat in his car outside a dive bar in southeast Portland, the rain drumming against the windshield, he reached for my hand. "I don't know how to stop this," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't want to hurt her, but I can't pretend this isn't real." I pulled my hand away, my heart pounding. "You're marrying my sister, Elias. This can't be real." But even as I said it, I knew I was lying. The truth was in the way my chest ached when he looked at me, the way I'd started dreaming of a life that wasn't mine to want. The city around us seemed to mirror our turmoil. Portland's gray skies and endless drizzle felt like a warning, urging us to stop before we broke something irreparable. But love, I was learning, didn't care about warnings. It didn't care about promises or plans. It just burned, relentless and unapologetic, until you either faced it or let it destroy you. As the wedding drew closer, the weight of our secret grew heavier. Clara noticed the tension, though she couldn't place it. "You're so quiet lately, Riley," she said one evening, her brow furrowed as we sat at the kitchen table. Is something wrong? I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. Just tired. I lied. But her eyes lingered on me, and I wondered if she sensed the storm brewing just beneath the surface. What would you do if the person you loved was promised to someone else? Someone you loved just as fiercely in a different way? How do you choose between your heart and your family? Elias and I didn't have answers, but we were running out of time to find them. The rain didn't stop, and neither did we. Elias and I were caught in a dance of stolen moments, each one more reckless than the last. By now, I knew every line of his face, the way his jaw tightened when he was nervous, the way his laugh could make the world feel less heavy. But every touch, every whispered word, was a step closer to a reckoning. Portland's streets glistened under the streetlights as we walked through the Pearl District one evening, pretending to scout venues for the rehearsal dinner. The truth was, we just wanted to be near each other. The air was thick with the scent of coffee and damp pavement, and the city's eclectic energy, street art, food trucks, the hum of indie music, felt like it was shielding us from the world. But it couldn't shield us from the guilt. Do you ever think about running away? Elias asked suddenly, stopping under a neon sign that flickered above a closed bookstore. His voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that made my chest ache. He was wearing a navy jacket, his hands stuffed in his pockets, and his eyes were fixed on the ground like he was afraid to meet mine. I laughed, though it came out more like a sigh. Run where, Elias? You're supposed to marry Clara in 10 days. There's no running from that. He looked up then, his gaze piercing. What if I don't want to marry her? The words hung between us, sharp and dangerous. I wanted to grab them, hold them close, but instead, I stepped back. Don't say that, I whispered. You don't mean it. But he did. I could see it in the way his shoulders slumped, the way he ran a hand through his curls. Elias was unraveling, and so was I. We were two people drowning in a secret that was too big to contain, and the wedding loomed like a guillotine. Back at home, the Harper house was a flurry of activity. My mother, Diane, was in her element, coordinating caterers and florists with military precision. My father, Tom, a quiet man who preferred his woodworking shop to family drama, seemed content to let her take charge. Clara, meanwhile, was a vision of bridal bliss, her excitement infectious to everyone but me. I watched her try on her dress, a flowing ivory gown that made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine, and I felt like a traitor. Riley, you're my maid of honor, she said one afternoon, her voice bright as she adjusted her veil in the mirror. You have to give a speech at the reception. Promise me it'll be heartfelt. Okay? I nodded, my throat tight. Promise, I managed. But the word felt like a lie. How could I stand in front of our family and friends, toasting her happiness, when I was the one breaking it? That night, I met Elias at a quiet cafe in St. John's, a neighborhood far enough from home to feel safe. We sat in a corner booth, the hum of conversation around us a fragile barrier against the truth. He reached for my hand under the table, his fingers warm against mine. I told Clara I needed to talk to her tomorrow, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't keep pretending. My heart stopped. Elias, no, you can't tell her. Not now. Why not? He demanded, his eyes flashing. This isn't fair to her, Riley. Or to us. I love you. The words hit me like a tidal wave, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Love. It was the one thing we hadn't dared name, the thing that made this so much worse. I wanted to say it back, to let the words spill out and damn the consequences, but I thought of Clara, her smile, her trust, her dreams. You can't do this to her, I said, pulling my hand away. She's my sister. And you're the one I want, he said, his voice breaking. How do we keep going like this? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that the wedding was a ticking clock, and every second brought us closer to a choice we weren't ready to make. The city outside seemed to pulse with our indecision, its bridges and rivers a reminder of the divides we couldn't cross. What happens when love becomes a betrayal? How do you choose between the person you love and the family you're bound to? Elias and I were about to find out whether we wanted to or not. The truth has a way of slipping out no matter how tightly you hold it. By the time Elias decided to tell Clara, I was a wreck, torn between wanting him and protecting her. Portland's gray skies seemed to mirror my mood, heavy with the weight of what was coming. Elias asked me to meet him at Forest Park the next morning, a sprawling wilderness just outside the city where we could talk without being overheard. The air was crisp, the ground soft with moss and pine needles, and the quiet felt like a reprieve. But as we walked the trails, his hand brushing mine, I could feel the storm brewing. I'm telling her tonight, he said, his voice steady but his eyes uncertain. I can't marry her, Riley. Not when I feel this way about you. I stopped walking, my breath catching. Elias, this will destroy her. You know that. My family, they'll never forgive us. He turned to me, his face raw with emotion. And what about us? Don't we get to be happy? I wanted to scream that yes, we did, that I'd spent years searching for someone who saw me the way he did. But the image of Clara's face, crumpled with betrayal, stopped me. This isn't just about us, I said. It's about her too. She loves you. Elias's jaw tightened. I know, and I care about her, but it's not the same. It's never been the same. We stood there, the forest swallowing our words, and I felt the weight of every choice we'd made. I thought of my parents, their pride in Clara's perfect life. I thought of my own years of hiding, of pretending to be someone I wasn't to keep the peace. And I thought of Elias, caught between duty and desire, his heart pulling him in two directions. That evening, I stayed home, pacing the living room while Clara and Elias met at a restaurant downtown. I could barely breathe, imagining her face as he told her the truth. Would he tell her everything about the park, the cafe, the way we couldn't stop ourselves? Or would he soften it, try to spare her the worst? When Clara came home, her eyes were red, her makeup streaked. She didn't look at me, just walked straight to her room and closed the door. My mother followed, her face a mask of confusion and worry. What happened? She demanded, turning to me. Did you know about this? I froze, my heart pounding. Know about what? I asked, my voice barely steady. Elias called off the wedding, she said, her words sharp. He said he can't go through with it. Clara's devastated. I wanted to run to find Elias and demand answers, but I stayed rooted to the spot. The house felt like it was closing in, the walls heavy with secrets. I knocked on Clara's door, my hands trembling. Clara? Can we talk? I called softly. She opened the door, her face pale. Did you know? She asked, her voice breaking. Did you know he didn't love me? I shook my head, the lie burning my throat. I didn't, I said, but the words felt hollow. She stared at me, searching for something I couldn't give her, and then closed the door again. The next day, Elias texted me to meet him at the waterfront. The Willamette River sparkled under the morning sun, but the beauty felt like a mockery. He looked exhausted, his eyes shadowed. I told her I couldn't marry her, he said. I didn't tell her about us. Not yet. Not yet. I echoed, my stomach twisting. Elias, this is already falling apart. If she finds out, she deserves the truth, he interrupted. But I couldn't do that to her last night. She was already broken. I wanted to be angry, to tell him he was making everything worse, but I couldn't, because deep down I knew he was right. Clara deserved honesty, even if it shattered her. But what did that mean for us? Could we build something real on the ruins of her trust? The city around us kept moving, bicyclists, joggers, the hum of morning traffic. But we were stuck, caught in a moment that could define the rest of our lives. Love was supposed to be a gift, but ours felt like a theft. And yet, I couldn't let it go. What do you do when the truth hurts everyone you love? How do you live with the choices that break a family apart? Elias and I were about to learn whether we were ready or not. The fallout was worse than I'd imagined. Clara stopped speaking to me, her silence louder than any argument. The house, once filled with wedding plans and laughter, was now a minefield of unspoken accusations. My parents didn't know the full truth, but they sensed something was wrong, their questions sharp and probing. I felt like I was suffocating, caught between the love I felt for Elias and the guilt that consumed me. Elias and I met in secret, our moments stolen in the shadows of Portland's quieter corners. We'd sit in his car, parked in an empty lot near the Fremont Bridge, or wander the aisles of a late-night grocery store, pretending to shop while we whispered about what came next. "I want to be with you," he said one night, his voice fierce. "But I don't know how to do this without hurting everyone." I nodded, my throat tight. "I don't either. But we can't keep hiding forever." The city seemed to watch us, its bridges and skyline a constant reminder of the divides we couldn't bridge. I thought about Clara constantly. Her pain, her confusion, the way she'd looked at me like I was a stranger. I wanted to tell her everything, to beg for her forgiveness, but every time I tried, the words caught in my throat. One evening, I found her in the backyard, sitting on the old swing set we'd played on as kids. The air was cool, the stars hidden behind clouds. "Clara," I started, my voice shaky. "I need to tell you something." She looked up, her eyes wary. "What now, Riley? Haven't you done enough?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "It's about Elias. And me." Her face froze, and for a moment, I thought she'd walk away. But she stayed, her hands gripping the swing's chains. "What about you and Elias?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. I told her everything. The stolen glances, the secret meetings, the way we'd fallen for each other despite ourselves. I didn't spare the details, even when her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I said, my voice breaking. "I love you, Clara. I never wanted to hurt you." She stood, her hands trembling. "You love me?" she repeated, her voice rising. "You're my sibling, Riley. You were supposed to be my maid of honor, not this." She gestured vaguely, as if she couldn't find a word for what I'd done. "How could you?" I had no answer, only tears. She walked away, leaving me alone in the dark, the swing creaking softly behind me. The truth was out, and it was as devastating as I'd feared. The next day, my mother confronted me. "Clara told me everything," she said, her voice cold. "How could you do this to your sister, to our family?" "I didn't choose this," I said, my voice raw. "I tried to stop it, Mom. I tried." She shook her head, her disappointment cutting deeper than any words. "You need to fix this, Riley, before it's too late." "But how do you fix something that's already broken?" Elias and I met at a quiet park the next day, the same one where we'd first crossed the line. He looked as lost as I felt, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "She knows," I said, my voice flat. "She hates me." He nodded, his eyes shadowed. "She called me last night, said she never wants to see me again." We stood in silence, the weight of our choices pressing down on us. Love was supposed to be beautiful, but ours had torn everything apart. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know I don't want to lose you." I wanted to believe him, to believe we could find a way through the wreckage. But as we stood there, the city humming around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were fighting a losing battle. Love had brought us together, but it might not be enough to keep us there. What happens when the cost of love is everything you hold dear? How do you rebuild when the truth has shattered the ones you love? Elias and I were about to find out whether we wanted to or not. The days after Clara learned the truth were a blur of pain and silence. My family felt like strangers, their glances heavy with judgment. Elias and I clung to each other, but even that felt fragile, like a thread stretched too thin. Portland's beauty, its rivers, its bridges, its vibrant streets, felt like a backdrop to our unraveling lives. I moved out of the family home, crashing with a friend in a cramped apartment in Northeast Portland. The distance helped, but it couldn't erase the guilt. Clara wouldn't answer my calls, and my parents' texts were curt, laced with disappointment. I felt like I'd lost them all, and for what? A love that might not survive the wreckage we'd caused? Elias and I met daily, trying to find a way forward. We'd walk along the waterfront, the Willamette River reflecting the city's lights, and talk about what our future could be. But every conversation circled back to Clara, to the family we'd hurt. Maybe we should leave, Elias said one evening, his voice quiet. Start over somewhere new. The idea was tempting, a fresh start, away from the weight of our mistakes. But I couldn't imagine leaving Clara behind, not when she was still hurting. I can't run away, I said. She's my sister. I need to make this right. He nodded, his hand finding mine. Then we'll face it together. Took weeks to gather the courage to confront Clara again. I found her at a cafe in Selwood, sipping coffee and staring out the window. She looked tired, her usual spark dimmed. Can we talk? I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't look at me, but she nodded. I sat down, my hands clasped tightly. I'm so sorry, Clara, I began. I know I betrayed you. I know I broke your trust. But I love him, and I love you, and I don't know how to fix this. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something softer than anger. I loved him too, she said, her voice steady. But he was never mine, was he? Not really. I shook my head, tears spilling over. I didn't want this to happen. I tried to stop it. She sighed, her shoulders slumping. I know, and I hate you for it, but I don't want to lose you, Riley. You're my family. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. We talked for hours, the words raw and painful but necessary. She told me about her heartbreak, her anger, her fear of being alone. I told her about my own struggles, the years of hiding who I was, the way Elias had seen me when no one else did. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. Elias and I decided to stay in Portland, to face the consequences of our choices. We moved in together, a small apartment in Alberta Arts District, and started building a life that was ours. It wasn't perfect. My parents were slow to come around, and Clara needed time, but it was real. We volunteered at a local LGBTQ+ center, helping others navigate the same struggles we'd faced. It felt like a way to give back, to make something good out of the pain we'd caused. One evening, as we sat on our tiny balcony, watching the city lights, Elias took my hand. We made it through, he said, his voice soft. It's not what I expected, but it's us. I nodded, leaning against him. It's enough. The city stretched out before us, its bridges connecting one side to the other, a reminder that even broken things could be mended. Love had nearly destroyed us, but it had also shown us who we were. And in the end, that was the most meaningful thing of all. Finding the courage to be ourselves, to love honestly, and to rebuild what we'd broken one step at a time. What does it mean to love when it hurts? How do you find redemption when you've caused pain? For Elias and me, it meant choosing truth, even when it was hard, and trusting that love, messy, complicated, beautiful, could light the way forward.